Welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a very specific mission. We're looking at a whole stack of resources about maximizing brand visibility and growth. But we are zeroing in on one precise geographic location, Roanoke, Virginia.
And that specific location, that's absolutely key. Our goal today is really to distill the most actionable knowledge from these sources. We're not after generic marketing tips here. We want the shortcut,
Yeah.
the direct path to understanding what works locally in Roanoke, from consumer preferences right down to the specific digital tactics that will help you spot those growth gaps and, well, start filling them fast.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. We have this comprehensive guide, and it details 5 essential marketing strategies. But interestingly, every source we looked at really insists that before you even think about digital tools, you have to build a solid local foundation.
Huh.
Why Roanoke specifically? Can't you just apply a national template?
Ugh. That's the common trap, isn't it? The sources really hammer this home.
Yeah.
Effective marketing in Roanoke is fundamentally rooted in the local market dynamics. Roanoke isn't, NYC or LA. It's different. It's a mid-sized market, very community-focused, so if you just slap a broad national strategy on it, you'll miss the nuances. And honestly, local preferences there often diverge quite a bit from wider national patterns.
Okay, so what does that foundational local groundwork actually look like? It sounds like maybe being more of a neighbor than just a marketer.
Precisely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It starts with meticulous research. And not just basic census data. You need to dig into specific demographics, age, income, interests, sure. But you also need to tailor your offerings based on things like, say, proximity to local hubs or how the whole outdoor tourism scene influences spending habits nearby. If you don't truly get who's buying and why they're in the valley, well, you're basically just throwing your budget away.
And it's more than just numbers, right? The sources also really highlight needing a deep connection. This is where community engagement fits in. Being active at events, connecting with local influencers.
That's exactly how you get those critical sort of on-the-ground insights.
Yeah.
In a community like Roanoke's, referrals and local reputation are absolute gold. Connecting with a respected local figure, that's not just marketing noise. It's about building real credibility, which is, frankly, much harder to achieve with just standard digital ads.
Right. And crucially, before you even lock in your strategy, you have to be looking closely at your direct competitors within the Roanoke Valley. This isn't just about checking their prices, is it?
No, not at all. The real goal is to spot those specific untapped gaps in the market, gaps that your business can fill. That gives you a clear competitive advantage, especially if you can leverage those local insights you just gathered.
Makes sense.
I mean, think about it. If your competitors are all hyper-focused on, say, the downtown retail scene, maybe the gap is serving those growing residential areas just outside the city center, that local groundwork. It shines a light on the opportunity.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Once that local foundation is solid, we shift into the execution phase. We start talking about the digital strategies that actually boost your online presence. Let's dive into the first core strategy, social media marketing.
Right. So for Roanoke businesses, what the sources tell us is that the key isn't necessarily being on every single platform. It's much more about hyper-targeting and real consistency on the right ones. You've got to pinpoint your precise audience and then tailor content that feels, well, authentic to the community, not generic.
Okay, so the usual suspects are mentioned: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But the mandate seems to be using them to genuinely engage customers, showcase your brand's personality, and the sources really stress consistency. You need a content calendar, plan posts, not just sales pitches, right? But reinforcing your role in the community.
Exactly. And just to tie this back to that local foundation we talked about, a specific tactic mentioned for boosting reach and credibility is collaborating with local influencers. But that brings up a tricky point, doesn't it? How do you actually vet those influencers in a mid-sized market where, everybody seems to know everyone?
That is a challenge. And the sources actually give a bit of a warning here. It's quality over quantity. Because the community is tighter knit. A single misstep with an influencer who feels, inauthentic or poorly aligned, that could damage your reputation much faster than in a huge national campaign. They really insist on checking alignment with your brand values, reviewing their past community involvement before you partner up.
That's an excellent point. And you also have to analyze performance metrics regularly. You can't just throw content out there. You need to understand what posts are hitting home. Maybe it's the ones featuring, say, the Blue Ridge Parkway or interesting local historical facts. Are those doing better than just generic product shots? That data, that's what should be driving your content calendar adjustments.
Okay, Moving smoothly then into strategy 2. This is the technical backbone of visibility. Search engine optimization, or SEO.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is the blend. It's part solid content strategy, part technical requirements. And those technical bits, they're pretty much non-negotiable if you want to rank higher. So practical steps start with keyword research. But again, local focus. It needs to go beyond just basic terms and capture the hyper-local phrases potential Roanoke customers are actually typing into Google.
Right. So instead of just plumber, you might need to target things like emergency plumber Grandin Village or heating repair Salem VA, and then weave those terms naturally into your on-page optimization, the titles, headers, meta descriptions. But let's clarify something for the listener running a business. Why does Google care about these technical requirements, like site speed?
Ugh, good question. It really boils down to user experience. These technical requirements are, well, simple necessities today. Your site has to load quickly. It absolutely must be mobile friendly. Think of it like Google wants to ensure you look professional and welcoming online. These factors directly impact rankings because, fundamentally, Google doesn't want to send people to slow, frustrating websites. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. And then to really solidify your position, the focus shifts to authority building. That sounds a bit complex.
It can sound that way, but it's simpler than you might think. Authority building basically means getting quality backlinks from other reputable websites. Think of a backlink as a kind of digital endorsement. If, say, the Roanoke Times or the local Chamber of Commerce links to your site, Google sees that as a vote of confidence. The more high-quality votes you collect, the more authoritative your site appears in Google's eyes.
That's a great analogy, the digital endorsement.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along to strategy 3, content marketing and branding. We just talked about consistency in social media. How does that same consistency translate into actually building trust rather than just feeling, repetitive?
Right, good distinction. Consistency shouldn't be repetition, it should be reinforcement. When you craft compelling content that genuinely resonates, maybe it's deep dive guides on local issues relevant to your industry or informative pieces about specific Virginia regulations, you're constantly reinforcing your brand's identity and its core values. You're showing you know your stuff locally.
And the sources emphasize that this consistency in messaging across all your platforms, blog, visual, social media updates, it dramatically boosts brand recognition, makes it easier for potential clients to just remember you when they actually need your service, builds that foundational trust and loyalty.
Exactly. It's that combination, showcasing expertise while consistently projecting a stable, helpful brand personality. That's what drives sustainable growth. It fosters lasting customer relationships. And that's really the essence of effective content marketing, particularly in a community where, let's face it, reputation travels fast.
Okay, finally, strategy 4 in the digital toolkit.
Yeah.
Digital advertising solutions. This sounds like where you get really surgical with the marketing budget.
Indeed. Yeah, surgical is a good word. When you leverage digital advertising correctly, you unlock very targeted marketing opportunities, mainly through platforms like Google Ads and those social media display ads. But the biggest benefit here, it's the power of analytics. You are absolutely never just guessing.
Right, you can track performance, optimize campaigns in basically real time. That ability to adjust on the fly lets you focus your budget only on the ads and the demographics that are actually working, immediately cutting out the waste. That sounds like a huge cost-saving measure right there.
It absolutely is huge. So tactically, it involves using engaging visuals, compelling ad copy to drive immediate conversions. And for really boosting your success rate, the sources highlight an advanced tool. Retargeting.
Retargeting. Okay, that sometimes sounds a bit aggressive, like you're following people around the internet. Can you give us a simple analogy for how that works and why it matters for a local business?
Sure. Think of it like leaving helpful digital breadcrumbs, maybe. Let's say you visited a local hiking gear store's website in Roanoke. You looked at backpacks, maybe put one in your cart, but then you left without buying. Retargeting allows that store to gently show you ads for those backpacks later, perhaps on Facebook or other sites you visit. The key is they're reaching users who have already shown significant interest in their products, which naturally improves the odds of bringing them back to actually complete the purchase. It's efficient.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we kind of pull back and look at the bigger picture, our listener needs to know how to actually apply these strategies effectively and manage the investment, which brings up a really important question. What does the practical application look like, especially when it comes to, well, the wallet?
Right. Let's talk about the practical side, costs and management. The source material is very upfront about this. Costs vary. A lot. It really depends on which specific strategy you prioritize. Are you going heavy on SEO? Or maybe putting more budget into, say, pay-per-click ads? The reputation of any agency you might hire plays a role, and of course, the overall scope of the project.
And you can expect a budget for several different things, typically, like the ad spend itself, design work, content creation writing, maybe video, and the tools to track everything.
Exactly. It's definitely a multifaceted investment, not just one line item. And for those thinking about hiring a professional agency, maybe one based in the Roanoke area, the sources outline some pretty clear steps for selecting one, mainly focusing on reducing risk. First, obviously, assess your goals and budget. Then, rigorously research the agency's past work. Crucially, ask for client references, specifically from businesses that are similar to yours, maybe in size or industry.
And the soft side matters too, doesn't it? They recommend making sure the agency's values align with yours, that you feel a genuine connection. Because reputation is so tight in this area, hiring a team you don't fully trust to represent your brand, that feels like a potential disaster. You really have to trust your gut during that vetting process.
Absolutely. Now, what about those with tighter budgets, maybe considering the DIY route, managing it all themselves? The source material confirms, yes, you absolutely can do your own marketing. However, and this is a big however, it requires a significant willingness to learn, adapt, and invest serious time and effort. It's not a casual undertaking.
That's a really key distinction, isn't it? It's an investment of your labor, if not directly your money. And the risk there is if you spend all that time doing marketing that isn't quite effective, well, that time is gone forever. Whereas a specialized agency might get results faster. You have to weigh the opportunity cost of your own time versus their focused expertise.
Precisely. That's the trade-off. But whichever route you choose, DIY or agency, the guide assures us that effective strategies will enhance visibility and drive growth. And that applies across pretty much any business sector: retail, healthcare, tech, local services. That core focus on local market dynamics, it's universally applicable in Roanoke.
So how do we know if all this effort, all this strategy is actually working? How do we measure success beyond just, feeling busy?
Right. Success is, thankfully, entirely measurable. You track key metrics, but they have to be tied directly to your specific business goals. You need to be looking at things like conversion rates, how many website visitors actually buy something or fill out a form or call you. Keep an eye on website traffic trends over time. And engagement levels on social media. Are people actually interacting? Regular disciplined analysis of this data is what helps you tweak your strategies, improve effectiveness, and ultimately ensure you're hitting those goals, whether they're generating leads or making direct sales.
Okay, so boiling it all down, what does this all mean? We've outlined this essential combination for transforming a business in Roanoke, VA. It starts with that deep, dedicated local market understanding. Then you layer on powerful, tailored social media strategies. Add the reinforcing strength of good SEO and compelling content. And finally, use those surgical, targeted digital ads. That really feels like the blueprint.
It is. And since we know tracking success requires that constant, disciplined look at the data conversion rates, traffic, engagement. And we also know that the foundational local strategy demands closely observing competitors to spot those market gaps. Let me leave you and our listeners with a final thought to maybe mull over, directly inspired by the source material.
Okay, hit us with it.
Consider this. How can your real-time analytics data, specifically those conversion rates and engagement levels coming from your digital campaigns, how can that data be used not just to tweak your advertising budget, but potentially to fundamentally redefine the market gaps you thought you observed in your initial local research? What if the data is actually telling you the real gap isn't what you first assumed it was, but it's revealing where the community is truly ready to spend its money right now?